Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today we're going to be talking about the top 5 roadblocks for infertility and being able to have a healthy pregnancy. We're going to dive into these topics here today. I get these questions all the time with my patients, and certain patients that come in to see me, they conjure up ideas for different video topics. So excited to dive into this topic, and it's a common one that people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So let's dive into that. Please smash the like button. Love to see your comments down below as well. And this will be a live video. So if you guys want to chime in with a question that's relevant, I'm happy to answer it. All right, so let's dive in. Infertility is a very common issue in today's day and age for a lot of reasons. Women are getting pregnant later in life, so egg quality can diminish. A lot of it has to do with environmental toxins, poor nutrition, and a whole bunch of gut health issues, immune issues, autoimmune issues. And if you take these issues and you magnify it, 10, 20, 30 years, health tends to degrade over time the longer a bad habit is in place. So that's a big part of why age is an issue outside of just hormones dropping and so many environmental hormone toxins in the environment that can negatively impact these things. So we want to really, avoid a lot of these things as much as possible. All right, so let me dive into fertility aspects. First thing, when it comes to fertility, we want to make sure everything from an anatomical standpoint is good. We don't have any fibroids that are impacting the uterus tissue, which can create blood flow problems. It can suck a lot of the blood flow and resources. It can create a little bit of inflammation on that inner uterine lining. So when that egg implants, it's harder to implant. You don't get as much of the blood flow, and there's more inflammation in there that makes the healthy implantation less possible. That's number one. Ovarian cysts are going to be a big part of the anatomy. Now, ovarian cysts, or PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, is one of the biggest causes of infertility. So the mechanism that's typically driving that is you have excess insulin. Excess insulin increases androgens in females. And those high levels of androgens can throw off prolactin, and it can create a lot of infertility problems. That's why the main drug that they give, conventional doctors give for PCOS, is what? Or glucophage, right? And so we know that that's an insulin sensitizing drug. Problem is, it also creates some B vitamin problems. It decreases gluconeogenesis from the liver. It's not really fixing the underlying issue. It does help. It's more of a gentler, more natural drug. It comes from a French lilac flower, but it's still not getting to the root, right? Out of all the drugs that are out there, it's definitely more gentle. And you just got to be on top of B vitamins and actually fix your diet. So first off, that's going to create problems with androgens. That's going to potentially create more acne issue and hair growth in women too. So that's cause number one. So that impacts the anatomy too. So out of the gate, we have polycystic ovarians. That's ovarian cysts in the ovaries. We have fibroids in the uterus tissue. And then we have endometriosis. And that's going to be endometrial tissue, the uterine lining, on the outside of the ovary or on the outside of the uterus or on the bladder or on the colon, right? It's that inside uterine tissue is spreading, typically driven by estrogen dominance, right? Hormonal imbalances. And again, the hallmark of that is usually going to be some kind of extreme pain at the start of your period. Usually very extreme pain outside of just bloating or cramping. It's usually a very extreme pain. Usually the way to diagnose it is going to be a laparoscopic open procedure where they go in with a scope and they look at it and they can laser it off or cut it off depending on how big it is. But that can definitely be an issue. There can also be what's called a chocolate cyst, which is endometriosis in the ovary as well itself. That can be another driving issue. So it's good to look at the anatomical stuff, right? We have PCOS, number one cause. Fibroids can be a big issue. Endometrial tissue overgrowth, right? Those are my big kind of 3 issues. And then also the fourth one would be fallopian tube not being patent or opened, right? So fallopian tube can be closed due to many reasons. Usually the test to assess that is a hysterosalpingiogram and HSG, where they put radioactive iodine up there, take pictures. And usually if it is closed, sometimes that can open it up as well, just because the pressure it can open it. Sometimes there can be a previous STD that can create scarring in that area too. Chlamydia, gonorrhea, and that could be a thing. And so you'd have to get some kind of a surgical procedure, ideally laser, or you want to see a good repro surgeon that can really get that working again. But usually an HSG picks that up and it can actually treat that issue if it is closed, but you may need surgery. So those are the big anatomical issues. Now we look at the hormones. Now PCOS is a hormonal issue too. And almost all of them are driven by hormones. So it's kind of, right, chicken or the egg, right? So if your timeline to get pregnant is sooner, then we may have to use surgical intervention to remove endometriosis or to remove fibroids, because to heal it naturally could take years. And so that may not be in your cards. And so you have to look at what your options are from a hormonal, from a surgical standpoint. Now, most of these issues are going to be driven by estrogen dominance. So we look at that mechanism. What are going to be the main inputs of excess estrogen in our environment? First thing is going to be plastics. So try to avoid consuming anything in plastics. If you're just drinking a glass of water and it's in a plastic glass and then you're just like filling it up from your RO filter and drinking it, I'm not really worried about that. I'm more worried about, hey, I have my water bottle on my desk. It's sitting there for 3-4 hours all day. I want glass. I want stainless steel. If you're just drinking something briefly, an hour and it's not hot, it's not in the sun, not as big of a deal. So, don't fret. Try to, prioritize what the big things are. Like all my kids have little Yeti water bottles with a lid. I'll typically drink out of like something in the morning that has some plastic in it, but like fast. Anything that's storage wise, it's going to be stainless steel. Or if it's going outside, it's going to be a Yeti mug that's stainless steel. So just do your best on that. All food storage in the fridge is going to be Pyrex for the most part. So all glass. Anything that's longer term, we're going to use glass. Anything heated in the microwave, I haven't used a microwave in 20 years, so I don't even know. But in general, typically Pyrex. And then if you use a convection oven or air fryer, which is my choice of heating up food, if I do it, would be Pyrex as well. So Pyrex is just a glass kind of name brand. Second thing is going to be pesticides. Pesticides have a lot of organochlorine components to it, or it could be glyphosate. A lot of these have estrogenic components that can easily impact hormones. It can impact men as well because it can throw off the LH signaling from the brain to the gonads to make testosterone. As a woman, it can just add more to your estrogen load. And so pesticides are a big thing. Glyphosate, organochlorines, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, not good. Plastics are number 2. And then, of course, you can get things like microplastics or microestrogen compounds from female birth control pills in the urine, right? Water processing companies do not filter out things at that level. They're going to filter out like big bugs potentially, or they're going to use chlorination to kill cholera or different microbes that could be in the water supply, maybe typhus, who knows, right? Different bacterial compounds. So that's what the water supply is doing, but you can still have microdoses of different things. And so I always recommend having a good RO filter for your home where you can filter that out yourself. That's good. Most RO filters have a silicone bladder that holds the water, so it's not usually plastic on the inside. So we want to have the clean water. We want plastics avoided for a lot of our storage of food or anything that's heated. We want to avoid pesticides, glyphosate, try to be as organic as possible. Plus, all of that increases nutrient density. When we don't have a bunch of pesticides and we have more organic practices, you're going to get more nutrition. And if you have budget issues, look at the clean 15 versus the dirty dozen, right? That gives you an idea what foods have the lowest or highest pesticide residue. So you can at least start with that. I would say next big thing out of the gate is make sure you eat for your hormones. What does that mean? Look at how your hormones are made, right? So you have peptide-based hormones in the body, which are hormones that are made from protein. That's going to be your insulin. That's going to be your thyroid. A lot of your pituitary hormones are going to be peptide-based. Replace peptide with protein. And then a lot of your downstream hormones, they're made from cholesterol, right? This is the reason why vegan and vegetarians are going to have a harder time getting pregnant or going to have infertility problems, is because you're not putting the raw material in their body to make their hormones. So it's very important. If you go look at any, tribe in an anthropomorphic manner where you're looking at like how tribes existed, you can look at Weston A. Price, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. He came across tribes that anytime there were animal products, they were always consumed. The only time tribes did not consume animal products is when they just weren't there. But as soon as animals became available, they consumed them. And certain tribes also harvested the organs, and they made sure the organs were given to the women of fertility age because they knew that the nutrient density and the building blocks in there were more dense in the organs. And so we always knew this culturally in different traditions and different cultures that these things were done, right? They didn't have a double-blind placebo-controlled study, but they just saw it. They knew it. They could see it, right? They could saw that fact pattern kind of unfold. And so what does that mean for us? Eat healthy raw material, eat healthy collagen, connective tissue. If you don't want to do organ meats or liver, you can always get it in a supplement form that's a good, high-quality, pasture-fed, grass-fed source. Most don't want to do organ meats, so you can do it in a capsule. I do it in a capsule. My wife does it in a capsule. I think it's really good. Just make sure it's good quality. Eat healthy animal products, grass-fed, pasture-fed. Get the full fat, get the full cholesterol, get the skin on, get all of the nutrients of that. And again, anyone that's worried about, negative impacts of killing animals, again, just look at it differently. Animals, when you consume them, you get nutrient density. Animals bioaccumulate plant matter. So you're getting a bioaccumulation of plant matter in an animal. So if it's pasture-fed, grass-fed, you're going to have more nutrient density. And the goal is to have the most amount of nutrition per death. Vegans and vegetarians are still having death. They're just getting it from combines, killing rabbits and snakes and squirrels and moles and all these different things, right? It's still happening, right? The difference is you don't have a lot of nutrition with per ounce or per pound, whatever. We're getting a lot more. One cow can feed a family of 4 for like 6 to 12 months. So you just per death, you have a lot more nutrition. So just think about it like that. It tends to be a good way that people feel better about consuming animal products. And stay away from the factory farm. I don't think that's a great way to do it, where animals are given small area to live and pesticides and chemicals and hormones, and they're fed grains and a natural diet. So that's not good. So there's definitely better options today. So raw material nutrition building blocks. Now, I put some studies down below looking at thyroid issues. So low thyroid / Hashimoto's, there's increased correlation of infertility. Issues with gluten sensitivity, or you have the extreme of celiac disease, can definitely create some issues with infertility. Why? When you have more inflammation in your gut, you're probably not absorbing nutrition. You're probably increasing your immune response to attack tissue in the body. You have more gut permeability, leaky gut, if you will, and that can create more gut stress. And it can just decrease the body's ability to absorb nutrients. So all of these are at play. And I also added a study in there. Just nutrition as well plays a big role. Like just having those important nutrients plays a big role with fertility. Talked about thyroid, estrogen dominance. Getting exposure to pesticides can increase infertility. And when it comes to pesticides, we're talking about estrogen dominance, but what about mold, right? Molds tend to also be estrogenic. So if you're living in a really moldy environment, that can also throw off fertility as well. Now, when it comes to hormones, stress does deplete progesterone. Progesterone will go downstream to make cortisol when you're chronically stressed. So making sure you're looking at the physical, chemical, and emotional stressors in your life that are potentially pulling progesterone downstream. And so we may need to supplement progesterone if it's really low. Again, we always want to fix the underlying reason why the progesterone's low. If I just say, here's progesterone, I'm basically acting like a medical doctor, meaning I'm just saying treat the symptom, not the cause. So if we recommend progesterone, we also want to make sure we're getting to the root underlying cause. So ideally we do both. And then we can use herbs and stuff to help with the HPG axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal gonadal axis, that feedback loop. There's different herbs that can help that feedback loop. So of course, avoid the toxins. The toxins screw that up. The stress screws that up. Not having enough nutrition screws that up. But different herbs, whether it's Vitex or Chase Tree, maca, shepherd's purse, white peony, there's holy basil, there's all kinds of ashwagandha, there's all kinds of different herbs we can use to help with the feedback loop. But of course, we want to make sure the stress and the inflammation is addressed first. We got to get to the root underlying cause. Now, thyroid too. With autoimmune thyroid, that can be a big deal. If we have a lot of Hashimoto's, TPO, thyroglobulin antibodies, that can be a problem. If we have low T3, that can be a big issue. And I already mentioned the insulin. Now that connects to the PCOS. If we have high levels of insulin, greater than 10 on a fasting insulin, or if you're doing a functional glucose tolerance on your Keto Mojo, test your blood sugar before you eat, 1 and 2 hours after. We want to be ideally in the first hour not above 120, and ideally back below 100 in hour 2, and definitely below 100 in hour 3. These are good ways to look at your hormones non-invasively. And then you can make dietary changes. More protein, more healthy fats, more veggies, less fruit and starch. You can adjust your carbohydrate according to your activity and to how you feel and to how sedentary you are and how sleep is, right? These are all important things to look at. So if we recap, right, top 5 roadblocks, we have physical things that I mentioned: PCOS, endometriosis, closed fallopian tube, fibroids. And then we have nutrition aspects, right? These are going to be all the nutrients, the organ meats, the fat soluble vitamins. Number 3 is going to be insulin resistance. That can drive a lot of issues. It's actually the number 1 cause of infertility, driving PCOS, which is part of number 1. Then we're going to talk about environmental toxins, whether it's pesticides, chemicals, molds, heavy metals, plastics. You could also throw birth control pills in there because most birth controls are very estrogenic. There are some IUDs that are, let's say, more levonorgestrel, which are more of the synthetic progesterones. Again, these are still throwing your hormones off and they can create problems. So we have that component. And then, of course, we have some of the autoimmune issues. We have gut stress. We have Hashimoto's. We have cortisol, progesterone issues that are pulling progesterone downstream to cortisol. We can add sleep to this as well. These are, again, each one has multiple kind of factors that could be connected or go into different subcategories. So this is a deeper issue, but just trying to give you 5 things to kind of wrap your head around. And if you're someone that wants to dig deeper, then we go deeper into each aspect and see, what could be the next step. And of course, gluten is a big component too. Gluten's in the food components. People usually eat gluten and then they're like, oh, I'm gluten-free. They can still eat a bunch of processed foods and be gluten-free. So gluten-free is not the solution. It's grain-free, but focusing on good, healthy, anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense, low-toxin food. So hope that helps. If you want to dive in deeper, if you need more support, there'll be a link down below where you can reach out to my staff and team. We see patients worldwide that use this type of natural hormone support to get to the root cause and really see what these underlying barriers could be in your life. So that's available down below if you want to click. And if you enjoyed today's video, please let me know in the comments. Love to see what you guys are thinking and saying. All right, guys, have an awesome day. Take care. Bye.